I'm Shep Hyken, and here's what's coming up next on this edition of Be Amazing or Go Home. Overcoming a brand crisis. How will you respond when things go wrong for your business or brand? We have 5 ways to navigate you through such a crisis. Moving leaders into action. How can you lead in any organization from any position? Leadership expert Chris Robinson joins us in the studio to tell us how to get there. Value-added selling. Paul Reilly is here to talk about how to make price irrelevant when you sell with value by creating an amazing experience. And the satisfied and loyal customer. The amazing quote shows us the importance of not just satisfying your customers, but also creating lifetime loyalty. So, are you ready to be amazing? Well, stay tuned for all of this and more coming up next on Be Amazing or Go Home. Hello, I'm Shep Hyken, and this is Be Amazing or Go Home, the show that's dedicated to take you from average to amazing. Now, at some point, your business and brand will go through a crisis. You'll encounter a problem, big or small, and it doesn't matter if it's your fault or not. Whether you're self-employed, a small business, or a Fortune 500 company, you'll certainly experience some kind of adversity. So, it's important that you and your team are prepared for such an occurrence. When a brand has a problem or a customer has a complaint, it can become a crisis. And anything a customer can record or comment on social media channels, well, that's everything that could potentially lead to a social crisis. Amazing people and companies seize these problems as opportunities to not just resolve the issue, but restore confidence with the customer going forward. In other words, you can turn a moment of misery into a moment of magic. And with that in mind, here's a 5-step process you can use to overcome a crisis with your business or brand. Number 1, acknowledge that there's a problem. Empathize with the customer and their situation, and you can say something like, "Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'd be upset too if something like that happened to me." Number 2, apologize for the problem. A sincere apology will get you rolling toward restoring that customer's confidence in you and your brand. Number 3, fix the problem. Or if it's more complicated, discuss what you plan to do to resolve the problem with getting you closer to where you want to be, which is renewing the customer's confidence. Number 4, take ownership or responsibility of the situation. It may not be your fault, but it is your opportunity, and you need to own whatever comes your way. Amazing people and leaders, for that matter, take responsibility even when something may not be their fault. And number 5, act with urgency. Get it done quickly. Again, you must own the situation. So, reaction time is paramount to mitigating the impact of a crisis and limiting its exposure. Urgency is the key to restoring customers' confidence. None of these steps will prevent a crisis or problem from happening in the first place, but they will help you plan your reaction. The proper way to react and to manage a crisis or an even minor complaint is the acknowledgement of the problem. Apologize for it, then discuss the resolution, take responsibility, and the final essential step, react quickly. So, be it an individual complaining or a major customer service crisis affecting thousands of customers, consider the 5-step process that not only fixes what's broken, but potentially restores the customer's confidence. If you want to be a leader, no matter what your position, you must lead yourself first. In other words, would I follow me? If the answer is not a resounding yes, then you have some work to do. And here to talk about how to take your leadership into action is the amazing Chris Robinson. How are you, Chris?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Great to have you on the show. So you work with John Maxwell,
Yes.
who's probably today's leadership guru to the world.
Yes, that's correct.
And how long have you been with that organization?
I've been with the organization for 9.5 years. I was actually one of the very first people to become certified by John, and then was able to build a business utilizing John's curriculum and material to becoming part of the faculty for the John Maxwell team. And now today,
you lead that team.
I lead the team.
You lead the team. So let's start with leadership. What is leadership?
Yeah, as we define leadership, it's influence, nothing more, nothing less. So it's not about a title, it's not about a position, it's not about, bullying people. It is about influence and nothing more, nothing
I love
less.
that. And everybody can have influence.
That's correct.
In other words, my friend Mark Sanborn, I don't know if you know Mark or not,
yeah.
and Mark is, I don't know if he worked with John Maxwell or he just is. So Mark says you don't need a title to be a leader. I think he even wrote a book with that title.
Correct.
And so anybody can be a leader. It's all about influence.
That's correct.
Leader of a family, leader of a small department, leader of an entire company.
That's correct.
Great. So are there any fundamental steps to leadership?
Yeah, well, it starts with yourself. If you don't have a track record, or if you can't answer that question of, would I follow me, then you have some work to do. But the good news is that leadership is a learnable skill. A lot of times, because we have that misconception of the definition of it being a title or position, we think that we're not leaders. And so leadership is a learnable skill, it can be taught, so you're not just born a leader.
Right, I get that. So anybody can be a leader. That's great. But I'll put it in customer service terms because that's the area that I focus on. Many times, a leader in a company says, we have great customer service. But then you go out and you talk to the customer, and the customer says, no, that's not the case. Is there ever a disconnect between what a person actually thinks of themselves and actually their capability?
Yes, absolutely, 100% of the time. When we go into organizations and we assess leaders, they oftentimes think highly of themselves because of the title or the position. And if we go back to that definition of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, you're going to always see that gap.
Right. I get that. So anybody in any organization can be a leader. One of my books, I talk about the force within, the force of many, and sometimes it's a single person, a force within, a much larger group, who may be somebody that has not even a real title per se, but they just are part of a team, but they bring everybody up.
Yes, that's
and they have natural tendencies toward leadership.
Right.
Probably nobody's ever taught them that.
Correct.
Okay, but you're saying it can be teachable.
It is teachable. It is teachable.
Which is why John Maxwell's done so well with all of his courses.
That's correct.
That's great. All right, so recently, we've all learned how to work remotely, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
And before that, many people did work remotely, and it was natural. But now, we were, or not now, but back when we were thrust into this. So leaders trying to lead a group of people that aren't right in front of them. That's probably quite a task.
It is, and it's a big shift, and a lot of organizations had to do that. And now they're finding that, hey, guess what? We've got to lead people this way. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they shift from going from the office to going to their home is that they forget that it's about people. And we have to put people first in this situation. And so what that means is understanding that every person that we're leading, whether in person or remotely, we've got to answer 3 questions. The 3 questions are this. That follower is going to ask, can I trust Shep? Does he?
Assuming I'm the leader.
Assuming you're the leader.
Okay.
They're going to ask you, can I trust you? Do you care for me? And can you help me?
Okay.
Can I trust you? Do you care for me? Can you help me? Now, whether that's in person or not, we have to, again, get a resounding yes to those questions if we want those people to follow us remotely. But oftentimes we think, when we get to this remote place, that it's all about the systems and it's all about the processes, and we have to remember it's all about the people.
Yeah, because many times I know that leaders, managers, they're dealing with people that, regardless of any circumstance, there's somebody on the other side of the country. There is a sales force that's spread out around the world. It's difficult. So the 3 words I'm picking up here are trust, care, and help. That's pretty simple. And I would say if that's where it all starts, that's a pretty good place to be. So as we start to wrap this up, I always like to ask a one-thing question. What's one thing about leadership that you could share that's instant? I know it's so much of this is a mindset, but is there something tactical that we can do, some skill that we can work on? Is it communication? Is it, what is the skill, and what would that one thing be that this audience should go and do, like right after they watch our interview?
Right. Well, I mean, when it comes down to one thing, I mean, obviously, John himself has written hundreds of books on this topic.
And not just a few books, hundreds of books.
Over 100. But if I had to say that there's one thing now, as you shift from going remotely and working in these different places, is that you have to change the mindset from hourly mindset as a business owner. Of, am I getting this person to work every single minute of the hour, to a results-based culture.
Yeah.
And if you can get beyond that and not worry about what they're doing at home, you'll truly get more out of the people and help the people.
So you have to define what the result is.
That's
so when
correct.
you have a goal in mind,
That's correct.
now we have something that's very measurable.
That's correct.
All right, what happens if they don't hit the goal?
Well, again, that goes back to, can they trust you? Do you care for them? Can you help them?
Yep.
What are you doing
That
to
third
help that
one,
person?
help. Let's help them learn how to hit the goal.
That's
right?
correct. And so we've got to provide that sort resource, coaching, training, whatever it is that you need to do in order to help get them to speed.
Well, Chris, this has been great. I take away this. As a leader, I want people to trust me.
Yep.
I want them to know that I care, and I want to be able to help.
That's
what
correct.
it's all about.
That's what it's
Thanks
all
for
about.
joining us
Hey,
today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you. Time now for the Amazing app, brought to you by First Rule, and this app allows the ultimate convenience by making things organized and effortless for you. Evernote allows you to take notes anywhere, find information faster, and share ideas with anyone, all while making sure nothing falls through the cracks. Evernote remembers everything important to you and is a single place for your notes, ideas, lists, and reminders. This helps manage everything from big projects to personal moments. Evernote lets you stay organized wherever you are as you plan and keep records and manage from any device, even while you're offline. Evernote also allows you to collaborate with your team as you can manage projects, clients, and meetings with ease. With everything synced and organized, you can bring your team together to accomplish what's most important to you. Some of the other convenient features of Evernote include templates for making notes better and faster. It also has the ability to find information anywhere in a file or even actual handwriting in any note. You can even save articles and pages from the web or connect any of your other favorite apps. By removing customer friction and creating convenience in many different ways, Evernote is truly an amazing app. Creating an amazing experience for your customers could potentially make price irrelevant, and the concept is simple. Add value, not cost. Sell value, not price. When you communicate on value instead of price, then everybody wins, including your customers. And here to talk more about that concept of value-added selling is Paul Reilly. Paul, welcome to the show.
Shep, it's great to be here.
So when I intro you like this, it's like we're talking about sales, sales, sales. And there's quite a few people that watch this show that go, well, I don't sell, but I believe everybody sells. Yes?
Absolutely. When you think about it, every person in an organization, whether it's direct or indirect, has an opportunity to create some value and to help the customer directly or indirectly. So in that sense, I think
Even a colleague they're working with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to get something, anything, you're selling. You may not be, or that person may not be charging a price for what it, or but you're trying to get somebody to do something.
And they're always sacrificing something, whether it is price or time, energy, or effort. Yeah.
So this book, Value-Added Selling, I want to hold it up high so everybody can see this. This is a great book, and actually it's a revised, updated version because this guy next to you, Tom Reilly, that's your father.
Yep, absolutely.
And I've known your dad since before you were born. This is terrible, isn't it? I met him in about 1984, 85, and he's responsible for a big part of what I do today. He got me involved more with speaking and all that. But he wrote the book on value-added selling. You come along, you update it, you give it a modern twist. And so tell us more about the concept, again, realizing if selling is getting somebody to do something, not just buy something, tell us how we add value to that.
Absolutely, and when you think about it, this message now, it's on its 4th edition, and so it speaks to the message. People want value, all right? They want value, and if we look at a basic concept of value-added selling, let's think of a buyer, all right? A buyer is constantly weighing out what they sacrifice, and they compare that to what they gain. And as long as what they gain is greater than what they sacrifice, we call that value. And so that's a basic underlying principle, is that we need to find ways to reduce what they sacrifice, not by lowering price necessarily, but also how we can increase what they gain. And by doing that, it's going to help create more value.
Yep. So in the 1980s, when I was first studying and learning everything I try to learn about to set me up for what I have today, there was a professor, Lou Stearns at Kellogg Business School. He worked for IBM, and he uses IBM as an example. They came up with 20 reasons you would buy an IBM computer back when IBM was just in the computer business. And oftentimes their computers were like large and fit in a room like this, and then they started shrinking them down. And he got price, which is one of the reasons people would buy, pushed down to number 16 on the list of 20, which to me means there were 15 areas of value that were higher. Am I on the right track here?
You're right on. In fact, we've researched this over a 20-year period where we determine what buyers really want in the experience with the product, with the overall solution, and price is always at the bottom. In fact, in our list, we have a list of 12 items, price ranked number 11.
Really?
So in our case, there's 10 things more important than just price.
But I go to the Walmart and I notice there's a lot of people in that parking lot.
There is.
And so riddle me this, Batman. Explain that one to me.
Yeah. So when you think about it, there are a certain percentage of customers who are pure price shoppers, meaning price is the only factor, and the other factors aren't as important. And from our research, we show that 1 out of 6 purely shop on price.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. So that
You've got 5 out of 6 people that if you can prove value,
yes,
they're going to want to buy.
They're going to want to buy.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so that explains part of it. But another thing we have to remember, value is deeply personal. Each decision maker, each customer, they define value in their own way. Their definition is the only one that matters. And since they define it, it's personal to them, and it's not always rational, by the way. So
great ideas in the book. There's step-by-step how-tos to understand how to create that value. Can you give me like the perfect example and just a summary of like a story or a company that provides such value it makes price virtually irrelevant?
You know, there's so many that I can think of, but one recent one, you know, the hospitality industry is a great example of this. And I was down in Houston doing a speaking engagement. I was staying at the Embassy Suites down there, a Hilton property.
I love it.
Great hotel. And I checked into the hotel. Very friendly staff. And as soon as I checked in, they offered me a bowl of candy. They said, would you like a couple pieces of chocolate? And I jokingly said, well, I'd be better off having a couple pieces of fruit given my waistline. You know, we both kind of chuckled and laughed. I didn't make it to the elevator before that same guy came over with a bag of fruit with an apple and an orange.
Oh, wow.
And he said, here you go.
So
that little extra effort.
And that at that moment, it didn't really matter what you were charged for the room.
No.
You loved the place. And if you're in a work environment, you're working with somebody and you want somebody to do something for you, you have to sell them on that. Sometimes you've got to give them the bag of fruit to get them to do what you want them to do. It's not a bribe, it's actual value.
It's value.
Yeah, love it. All right, my final question, I always ask the one thing question, or usually ask it. Is there one last idea you want to share with us about value-added selling?
Yeah, you know, inherent in this message is that we need to be a person of value, meaning we need to look for opportunities to serve our customers more, to solve their problems, to focus on them. If we make that our compass, our true north-orienting philosophy, just to be a person of value, that's going to help guide us, and you're going to end up creating value in ways you never thought of before. I
almost want to say the word serve. Serve versus sell. If you serve well, they buy. If you sell, they have to purchase. Okay.
Great point.
Yeah, I guess so. The book, again, it's Value-Added Selling in its 4th edition, How to Sell More Profitably, Confidently, and Professionally by Competing on Value, Not Price, written by Tom Reilly and Paul Reilly. Paul, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks. It's time to hear from you and time to Ask Shep. Now, you can find me anywhere on the web, including these social channels. So use the hashtag AskShep to ask me your questions or share your amazing stories. So let's begin with Taylor Smith, as she is a college student but works as a part-time call center agent, and she asks, what's the difference between customer service and customer experience? Great question. Now, most people think customer service is a department, and it can be, but at the same time, it's much more. It's every interaction that the customer has with a company at any point they're doing business. It's not just about who handles a complaint or answers a question. It's the way the customer is treated. Customer service is part of customer experience. The experience is actually much bigger and includes each and every interaction with the product, the company, and any individual of the company. And taking it a step further, both customer service and experience aren't just strategies or tactics. They're part of the culture. We want our customers to have an amazing customer experience, which also includes the customer service every time they interact with us. Now, next up is Pat Harris, a financial analyst, and he says online reviews seem to be a big deal, but there doesn't seem to be much excitement for reviews in my line of work. How do I change that? Well, the short answer to this question is to simply ask your customer to leave a review. At the right time, send your client a short survey and ask if they'd like to leave an online review. Provide them a link so that you make it easy. It's almost that simple. By the way, make sure you give your customers an experience that would make them want to leave a positive review. That goes without saying. Finally, we have Jennifer Hoyer, who manages several car dealerships, and she asks, a poll showed that an overwhelming majority of customers say it's easier to take their business elsewhere. What can I do to keep that from happening? Well, there are plenty of surveys that are telling us that a large majority of customers will switch to doing business with a competitor after just one bad experience. In some surveys, it's more than 80%. Now, one of my favorite reports referred to these customers as serial switchers. First, know that customers are smart about what good customer service and experience looks like. So the bar is raised and you need to meet, if not exceed it. Second, since you know that customers have a propensity to switch after a bad experience, make sure that your staff is properly trained to deliver great service every time. And if there's a service failure, teach them how to manage it. At the top of this show, we talked about 5 ways to manage a crisis or a complaint. So go back and review those. So, are you ready to be amazing? Remember, you can find me just about anywhere on social media. So, connect with us on our social channels and don't forget to use the hashtag AskShep to ask me your questions or share your amazing story. Now it's time for the amazing quote brought to you by First Rule, and it comes from James Cash Penney, better known as J.C. Penney, the founder and retail giant of a store of the same name. The well-satisfied customer will bring the repeat sale that counts. The one statistic that matters most is, does the customer come back? And while satisfying your customers is important, this quote goes beyond just that. Creating customer amazement isn't an over-the-top experience. It's about a consistent and predictable above-average experience. Now, you can have an occasional opportunity to go over the top for your customers, but the consistent and positive experience is what your customers will love most about you. They will own the experience you provide them, and they'll reciprocate with more business and referrals. Satisfying your customers is not enough. Satisfied customers are not loyal customers. Satisfactory is a rating, and loyalty is an emotion. So connect with your customers on an emotional level to move them beyond just satisfied. It's the total customer experience, not just customer service, that creates loyalty. Again, a great service experience is not just a one-time effort. It's consistent. It takes constant training and practice. And when you practice enough, it becomes a habit, one that will make your business a success. Now remember, just satisfying customers isn't enough anymore. The consistent and predictable, above-average experiences is what will ultimately turn a satisfied customer into a loyal customer. Well, that wraps up this edition of Be Amazing or Go Home. And remember, you can find me just about anywhere on social media, so be sure to connect with us on our social channels, and don't forget to use the hashtag AskShep to ask me your questions and share your story. Thanks for tuning in. This is Shep Hyken, reminding you to always be amazing.